Hi, this is Brandon here from thirstgym.com, and today we're going to do an episode of Training Talk. This is going to be a new YouTube series that I'm going to do about every couple weeks. I'm going to pick a topic, discuss about why it might be either a fallacy or some benefits or something used for training. The idea is to make it something beneficial and useful that you can benefit from. So today what we're going to talk about is the high-speed treadmill fallacy, or the myth that that's what helps build really good top-end speed. So you probably see a lot of different things on social media or even on TV of athletes training really hard using these high-speed treadmills. You'll even see 8-year-olds using them and talking about how fast they can run. And while that might be great in theory, the problem is running on a treadmill is not the same as running, being a competitive athlete on a field or on a court or something like that. So I've got some notes here of things that I'm going to discuss about this, so I can make sure I hit every bullet point, because this might be a 5 or 10 minute video and I want to be able to give you everything that you might need in terms of why this may not be true. So the first thing I got here is that the injury risk of just the exercise in general. So there's going to be an injury risk with everything. However, we're talking about being on a high-speed treadmill, probably trying to put an athlete that is trying to get faster on something that's faster than what they can actually run. And then you see those coaches back there holding their hand back there, making sure that they don't fall backwards or anything like that. I personally think if you're trying to get faster, that's probably one of the higher risk things that you can do to get faster as an athlete. There could be some upside advantages, but I would argue that the return on investment probably isn't there. We're talking about high speed velocity, which means we're running at a good quality upright vertical posture. You're not going to lean forward like you would in terms of training acceleration. So that's one big thing. It's just the injury risk. In my opinion, it's not worth it. I think there's better ways to improve speed or even top end speed, and we can talk about that in a different video, but to me, not worth it. So the next thing I have on here is acceleration and deceleration in sport. So for most athletes, being a good athlete and being somebody super successful, especially at like the collegiate or further on level, those athletes just accelerate and decelerate better than other athletes. People talk about stopping on a dime, being able to change direction, being super quick in their hips and their feet. That's all acceleration, deceleration, change of direction. And then also even the mental piece of that, of being able to see a stimulus and be able to react to that stimulus, which is what true agility really is being able to make a mental decision, put your body in space to make that play or be more advantageous on that decision to be a better athlete. So a high-speed treadmill is not going to do that for you. That's only top-end velocity, and most athletes don't need to be at top-end velocity or may not even reach top-end velocity in their sports. And if they do, it might be a very rare occasion. Let's take football, for example. The athletes that are probably hitting top end velocity are going to be your receivers, your running backs, maybe your occasional DB if they get a pick six and they're running it to the house, right? How often does that happen? You see an athlete running over 20 or 30 yards in a football game? Pretty rare. Your linemen definitely aren't doing it. Your quarterbacks probably super rarely are doing it. And then your linebackers, cornerbacks, they've got to make an interception or pick up a fumble and have enough space to run. And then you start talking about your running backs and your probably receivers. Again, what makes them good? Chances are it's that change in direction, that acceleration, that deceleration point to be able to get open in the first place to make that play happen. You're not going to probably find somebody wide open at the next level. You might at a youth athlete age, but even then you're going to argue they're probably not going to reach top speed or very unlikely. Now, the one population that you're probably going to see this more would be like a track and field athlete where they've got to run as fast as they can. But even then you could argue that the acceleration piece is probably going to be what helps them in getting off the line faster, especially if you're talking about more sprints, because then once you start getting into like the 200, 400 meter races, then it comes about how long can you keep a high speed, but maybe not your maximal speed. So again, a completely different training thing. And then you're talking about training energy systems more than you're talking about top end velocity and the carryover for sport. So in my opinion, for most sports, top end velocity isn't nearly as important as people are going to push for you. You definitely want to train the acceleration, the deceleration, and or the change of direction and agility piece for that athlete in that sport and what that athlete needs to improve upon. And you're probably going to see the athlete move better, run faster, and beat other athletes. So again, something I think that's probably a little overrated, and the high-speed treadmill is not going to help develop anything else other than that top end velocity, that one number that we're really kind of talking about. So the next one's going to be about the force application of how the high-speed treadmill works. So the big thing that you've got to understand here is that when you're running on a treadmill, the ground is moving underneath you, right? So basically it's how fast can I move my legs while something underneath me is moving. So yeah, you might be able to run 22 miles an hour on a high-speed treadmill, but the thing is you're not having to take that force, put it into the ground and propel yourself forward. So running, obviously you have to do that. The ground technically isn't moving, you're moving yourself and grabbing and pulling yourself forward, where the treadmill is already going and you have to see how fast you can get your legs to just hit and go through it, kind of like a hamster on a hamster wheel. The wheel is moving and the hamster isn't really going anywhere and you're the hamster. And so obviously they can probably move that faster. As you can see, they reach forward and they pull it. You can do that on a treadmill. You can't do that in real sport. You're gonna have to actually move yourself forward. And then just kind of going back to that last piece, we talk about the change of direction, the agility, the acceleration, the deceleration. You've actually got to be able to have some brakes and put things into the ground to move you forward with that forward lean with the acceleration piece. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, is that the mechanics and the force is definitely different than actually running on the ground. And I think if you probably are somebody that walks or runs on a treadmill and then walks and runs outside, you tell me what's harder, walking and running outside or walking and running on a treadmill. Outside is definitely harder every single time you go for a run, and I think almost most people would agree with that. Another one would be that your running mechanics aren't as important as someone might believe you to be. Now, that doesn't mean you can't run with your arms by your side and have really short choppy steps, but in general, if most things look good, we've got some good arm swing, we've got good knee drive out of the acceleration piece when we go to actually accelerate or take off from the line, or we go to decelerate, we're able to drop our hips and keep everything in good position to be able to decelerate in a good athletic stance, or we go to change direction and we've got a nice good wide base support to change direction from. Again, I think that's gonna carry over better to being a better athlete than working on your top end velocity mechanics, because again, like we kind of talked about in that other point in a couple back, was that your time that you're spending at max velocity is so small, or such a very small minimal chance in sport that's going to happen. So why do we need to put more time into the mechanics of that? I don't really know. I don't really see the benefit there. That's just me. Now it's like, again, if somebody's got really bad running mechanics and they're running with their arms by their side and their knees are, you know what I'm talking about. You see kids that just, they look like they can't run. Then yeah, you need to work on some general mechanics. But again, those kids are so low level. Why do they need to be on a high-speed treadmill to begin with? Again, I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. And when you kind of lay it out that way, I think you'll probably figure that out too. And then the other big thing is that I really don't think that many professional athletes are using high-speed treadmills, right? They're doing more of the little stuff and the minutia that they need to get better, which for most athletes is, number one, going to be staying healthy, taking care of their body, working on their nutrition, and getting good high-quality training both in the weight room and then from a change of direction, agility, and deceleration piece into what makes them a better athlete. So even the track athletes that are running 100 and 200 meters, where that top velocity is definitely going to come into play more than probably any other sport, they're not going to be on those high-speed treadmills working on that. They're probably going to be doing more things on the track, like some flying 10s, flying 20s, different shorter burst things, trying to get into that top end velocity more frequently actually on the ground so they can actually work on things. But then again, we're also talking about super high level athletes where they're probably going to be fast with or without the training that they get 9 times out of 10, which again brings me back to the point of just staying healthy and having good longevity to be a good athlete, and doing the little things, the hamstring work, the soft tissue work, making sure they got a strong midsection, and little things like that. And the nutrition, the sleep, all of that goes a much further way for those level of athletes, because again, they've got the genetic code to be elite, probably with or without our training. So then we got to start fine-tuning the external factors outside of the training so that the training that they do benefit from more to begin with anyways. So those are the top 5 things that I had written down to discuss about this particular topic. We don't have a high-speed treadmill in our facility. We don't even really work, again, going back to this, we don't really work a whole lot of top top-end velocity mechanics. One, we're kind of limited by space in our facility, but number two, again, I don't see the benefit from the time invested. The return on investment is not there, especially for my population when I'm working with 10 to 18-year-old athletes. They're trying to get better in terms of their agility, their change of direction, and their acceleration and their deceleration. If we can improve that stuff and improve just general strength, I think what you'll find is that your athletes are going to get faster, they're going to be better, they're going to move better, and then they're going to go out and beat kids on the field, and ultimately that's what we're trying to help them do, is be a better athlete. So hopefully those 5 things helped you realize why I don't like the high-speed treadmill and why it might be a fallacy and a myth, and how it helps develop faster athletes. Check you back at the next video.